Yeah, so the question is, how do you enter, paraphrase, the question is, how do you enter into relationship with someone who theologically or ideologically is very different than you? And then host a constructive conversation. Is that, yes. Okay, is that what you're asking? I don't know. I think most of our training is not... Most of our training is actually focused on helping people learn how to be in flourishing relationships with people that you disagree with. And so I think there's, I think a shortcoming in North American Christianity is that we've trained our people to tribalize and find people who are just like us, and who speak the exact same language and have the exact same theological framework and believe all of the same stuff and so on and so forth. There's a strength, I think, to being in a like-minded tribe with people. Where it gets dangerous is when that becomes exclusive and because it's a limited understanding of the world. I actually think that so long as I just surround myself with people who are just like me, I'm not really even fully human. Like, I need people who are different than me to actually help me be fully alive as a human being. So I think part of what we actually need to think about is, how do we as the church actually understand our role as training people to enter into relationships with people who think and practice life very differently than us. So part of the reason that we're not good at entering into conversations with people who have different theological frameworks or ideologies is because we just simply don't have any experience having those conversations. We don't know how to graciously disagree. We don't know how to ask questions that push and provoke. We have more of a commitment to being right than being in relationship. And so how I would encourage you is, in the midst of these conversations, or even in entering into it, demonstrate that you care more about the friendship than being right. And there's a good chance that your friends or your family members, the theological ground that they stand on, they can probably back it up here. And that's some of the uniqueness of the way that the Bible is used. And in the same way, you could probably use this to articulate your entire theological framework. And from my perspective, as long as we're not missing Jesus, then we can actually go to the scriptures and have an actual conversation. Like, I'm not really that interested in someone's opinion about Israel-Palestine. I actually want to get to what is the theological framework that informs your opinion and makes you so upset, whenever Israel is brought up or Palestine is brought up or whatever it is. And so I want to actually get to the theological framework, and I want to have a conversation around that. Even in that time, I actually have to focus, because I like to talk, and I like to be right, and so I have to really focus on leading with curiosity and seeking to understand. I think that's the tool in those conversations. What I'm finding, I sit now at tables with people who think diametrically opposed to me on stuff. I'm learning that we can actually start to hear one another once we've demonstrated that the relationship is more important than convincing one another of something. I would say, like, where has there been traction that I've seen in my life? I mean, my family has a very different theological framework than I have. And I think the mistakes that I've made, and it's kind of a test lab because they're my family, and so I'm going to really blow it, and they're going to hopefully have grace with me in the midst of that and let me be messy, and they're going to blow it, and hopefully I'm going to have grace with them and let them be messy. So it's kind of a unique test lab in the relationship I have there. But over time, and it's been like a 10-year conversation, they're finally at a place where they're ready to engage a conversation about Israel and Palestine. And that's my family with whom I'm comfortable with, and we're in deep relationship. And so recognizing that these kinds of conversations, like they've spent 30 plus, 50 plus years building and reinforcing a theological framework that's not going to crumble in one afternoon. It's going to be 10 years of us listening and maybe showing a different picture, a bigger picture, that over time will begin to shift things. So commit to the long haul. Lead with relationship, demonstrate curiosity, and commit to it for the long term and see what happens. And then pray. into it. I think the Spirit roams in the midst of theological reformation in us.